Skye seems to be on everybody's kind of bucket list.
Yeah.
Almost internationally, it's there. You know, everybody wants to visit Skye at some point.
We do it because we need to, unfortunately, which is, you know, the sad thing about it.
It never ends.
On May 14, me and my travel companion Yasser decided to start our journey to the Isle of Skye in Scotland, a trip which would last a total of 8 days. The first stage of the trip was to get to Glasgow, Scotland's largest city, and to do so, we had to take the train for the next 6 hours, so we had to alternate between a number of activities to keep ourselves entertained as best as we could. We passed through Birmingham, Lancaster and Oxenholme, near the Lake District National Park, one of the UK's biggest tourist hotspots. In terms of landscape's beauty, one thing was certain: we were in no danger of being disappointed. One thing remained far more uncertain, however: the weather. In Scotland, and in particular on the islands, the weather can be very changing. It could be sunny at 12 and you wouldn't be surprised if it started pouring by 12:05, snowing by 12:10 and be bright and sunny again by 12:15. We eventually made it to Glasgow. The city was buzzing with life and didn't fail to live up to its status as Scotland's most populous city. We took a break at the hotel, revitalizing ourselves with a can of Scotland's other national drink. We then set off on a little tour of the town, where we came across some very well-dressed people. A game of pool later, and we headed to bed. On the next day, we were gladly surprised to see that the weather was changing in our favor. We packed our bags and headed towards our new home using Glasgow's pretty small but very modern tube. And there it was, our home for the next 5 nights. We hit the road. Leaving from Glasgow, our goal was to get to Portree, Skye's main city, by the end of the day. Yet, just off our planned route was the famous Loch Ness, where we hoped to catch a glimpse of its famous monster. The varied landscapes we were to see along the way were already incredible. And after just over 3 hours on the road, Loch Ness finally revealed itself to us. I also took the opportunity to get out my film camera and capture the scene. And believe it or not, there is a possibility that I may have captured the Loch Ness monster on my picture. It was time to ask our driver how his driving experience was going.
So far, the driving has been a bit challenging, stressful at times, but manageable. Wherever you are, it's super scenic. The weather's been nice as well, so we could really get to see everything happening. And even now, we're literally parked. There's always these nice little parking spots that you can pull over and just stop, look at the view.
What about the challenges?
They're very narrow roads, and usually there'd be a passing way. What was it called? Passing plate. Yeah, so it was a lot of maneuvering, but everyone here is really nice. Usually you get away with it. Sometimes there was a time where the person uses the headlights to go.
After this quick photo, it was time to get back on the road to Skye. The last 2 hours on the road went pretty smoothly. We got to cross the Skye Bridge and arrived in the Gaelic lands of Skye before nightfall. We parked the car for the night and fell asleep shortly afterwards, far from imagining the wonderful experience we were going to live over the next few days. After a quick breakfast, it was time for us to head to Portree, Skye's main and largest town, where a cruise ship was due to arrive on that day. Little had we imagined the tide of people that would literally flood into this small town. So indeed, Portree is very, very tiny, and I can imagine that the city can be sometimes a little bit oversaturated with people. Can you feel this? Do you feel that often?
Oh, certainly. When there's ships in, for example, that does happen, and even when there isn't, sometimes it feels as if we just don't have the infrastructure to deal with the numbers that have that come into Skye, and it's great. It is great, and we would never put people off from visiting the island, and we want people to visit the island, but there needs to be an understanding from all parties that it does has an impact.
The impressions Stephen shared with us were ones we had also experienced a few days earlier. These images contrast footage recorded on our first visit to Portree with footage recorded on the day the cruise ship was in the town's harbour.
It's important to sort of for the local businesses to know when they come in. So, for example, here we give out the list that tells them when the ship is coming in, and or the big ones are coming in, especially because it's fairly easy to deal with the smaller ones, but it does present a challenge. In somewhere like Portree, where there's a limited bus service, for example, and they're all coming in ashore to be able to get the best experience, but it can be a bit more of a challenge, fairly obviously, with bigger numbers.
After discussing with Stephen, it was clear to us that although the town does not have the infrastructures and staff to meet this very high touristic demand, the city remains nonetheless very dependent on it. To keep the local economy going, and under the recommendation of the tourist office staff, it was now time for us to fully experience tourism on Skye. And what a way to start! Here we are in the Old Man of Storr car park, desperately looking for a place to park. After a bit of research, it seems that historically, the type and number of tourists who come to Skye has changed quite a bit over time. We asked the Highland Council about this matter.
Some important areas like Storr and Kiltrock and things. If you were to go back 20 years, there were small car parks and they weren't very heavily used. And you would have a certain type of tourist that was coming round for walking and for landscapes and for photography.
Indeed, the majority of attractions on the Isle of Skye being in open spaces, they are free. The council has therefore found a way of turning tourism into an economic benefit, as well as guaranteeing the conservation and protection of this site by charging for parking. A clever move, given that the majority of tourists now come to the island by private car. Not far from each of the island's major attractions, you'll thus find car parks large enough to accommodate visitors. After placing our ticket under the car's windshield, we set off to climb the Old Man of Storr, accompanied by an exceptional weather. After a 30-minute hike, we took a short refreshment break before tackling the steepest part of the climb. It's a tiny old man. After another 40 minutes or so, we finally reached the top of the walk, where the view was truly breathtaking. After this nice photo, it was time for us to head back down and carry on with our next destinations. The Isle of Skye is also on the list of the most popular destinations of the country. One of the main goals of this trip was thus to see for ourselves the impact of tourism, and more specifically, the impact of mass tourism on this island. After all these visits, we obviously also needed to rest. And what better way to do this than to use the car we were traveling in as a hotel room? Car camping is one of the most popular ways to travel on the Isle of Skye. People generally come fully equipped with vans or camping cars designed and fitted out for this kind of adventure. The council tells us more about this new way of travelling.
So because everything was filling up so much, we had, roadside car parking and, different stuff on the roads and road blockages, and people were having trouble getting around from their day-to-day. So we increased parking capacity, and then of course we had all the other facilities that we had to provide, because people were travelling in camper vans and things. So we found there was waste generation, there was some waste dumping, and the roads were filling up, so we had to provide the space, and if we provided the space, we had to provide the facilities. So along with the car parking, along came the toilets and the black and grey waste disposal and such like.
One thing was for sure though, this kind of camping gave us the chance to go to bed and wake up the next day to some exceptional scenery. One of the main reasons we wanted to travel to the Isle of Skye during mid-May was because the Caledonian Environmental Restoration Trust was organizing a major 2-day beach cleanup at that time of the year. Equipped with our life jackets and having signed the safety charter, we boarded a small boat with the rest of the volunteers, heading towards the beach where we were to spend several hours cleaning up. When we saw the beach, although we could already see a great deal of rubbish, we were still far from imagining what was in store for us. With our feet on the ground and our rubbish bags in hand, we started the big cleanup.
I am the project coordinator for the Scottish Coastal Cleanup, and we're a beach cleaning charity that works all around Scotland. We work with other beach cleaning organisations and individuals, communities, in areas that they've kind of highlighted as marine litter hotspots. I've been in this role just over a year, but I've been quite hardcore beach cleaning for quite a few years. So we will kind of focus on areas where people don't get to easily. So here, this beach is obviously particularly bad. We were away a few weekends ago up in the Summer Isles, and I think we removed 1.5 tons of rubbish. Most of the stuff we find is fishing industry related, unfortunately. Like I would say, on beaches like this, it's probably at least 95%. I like to think there's less coming in, but what we're doing, it doesn't feel like it. So, which is again why it's important that we come back to places like this, next year and see what's washed in and monitor them. There's a lot of surveying going on as well at the moment, so I think that's really important. So we have actual data. I think just to realise that there is a scale of problem in Scotland, and that actually it probably needs to come from a much higher level. There needs to be monetary kind of coming from government to help tackle it. Because at the moment it's volunteers, even it's like what do you do with it? There's not really a good system in place. A lot of the islands struggle to get it off the islands. So yeah, I think there has to be more acknowledgement from the government that there is a scale of problem, and more support for everyone who's doing beach cleaning.
From talking to Carrie in the days following the cleanup session, we learned that the total weight of rubbish collected from that beach was over 3 tons. A huge amount of work provided by dedicated mere volunteers. We asked the council if financial resources were available for this type of organisations.
Well, I suppose yes. I can understand that. Everybody's sort of looking for more resources to deal with the impacts. There are funds like there are tourism infrastructure funds, so there is central government funding provided. There are different grants available from organisations from like Nature Scot and such like. So there is funding that has to be, they'd have to find the funding pot and apply for it. But as to whether the funding model fits what their intents are, that'll vary. I'm aware of them, and there's similar groups, and it's really good that communities can actually sort of, take that positive action themselves.
It was then time for us to debrief on this unique experience.
It was hard labor, especially since there was so much on the beach. It felt a little bit overwhelming sometimes, in the sense that the more we picked trash, the more it seems that there was trash. It was never ending, basically. So
Yeah, you'd kind of clear one spot, and then you would like turn, and then you would see like as if it just magically reappeared, and you're like, this never ends.
All in all, beyond taking an important ecological action, this experience also allowed us to push our limits, as well as meet some inspiring and dedicated people. After one last look at the inner sand and one last photo, it was time for us to leave the island. Although tourist habits may have changed massively after COVID-19, particularly in the way people choose a destination, travel, or book, it seemed certain that tourism wouldn't be stopping anytime soon on Skye. We left the island and drove towards the small town of Inverness, from where we would take our bus back to Glasgow. The next day, it was then time for us to return to London. As soon as we set foot on the station platform, we were caught up in the fast-moving London tornado, making us miss the tranquility of Skye very quickly. Our trip to Scotland's Isle of Skye revealed the crucial importance of preserving its stunning landscapes in the face of growing tourist pressure. Overcrowding leads to degradation of trails and pressure on infrastructure, requiring effective management of tourist flows and waste. Promoting sustainable tourism and eco-responsible infrastructure while raising visitor awareness and evolving local communities is thus essential to minimize environmental impact.
Now, we employed, over the last few years, we employed a group of rangers to cover the main hotspots and to provide information to visitors and to mitigate the impacts of the visitors by providing advice to visitors. And these people would be out on 7 days and they would count the numbers of people that would be using the facilities as well, just to show the impact, dealing directly face to face with the public. And that was a service provided, and it wasn't really an enforcement. It was more of it certainly wasn't enforcement, it was more just a provision of advice.
It is by adopting respectful practices that visitors can and will contribute to the protection of this natural jewel for future generations.
Come to enjoy Skye because it's got some of the most stunning sceneries in the world. So it is here to be enjoyed, but it's here to be respected, and I hope people can remember that.